All right, so we're going to continue on with circles, and we're going to get into some vocabulary terms that we're going to need to know moving forward. So I think this is a good transition lesson for everybody. So if we look at the different types of parts of circles, at first glance, it's going to seem like a long list, but really you can break it down into three types. We have lines, angles, and then arcs. And arcs are specific to circles, where lines and angles have been in every single shape we've done all year. Arcs are specific only to circles. So this note sheet you can find on Schoology. If you don't want to print it out, you can just use a notebook. So essentially it's just the word, the definition, and a picture. So you can create this yourself if you want to, or if you don't have a printer. So a circle, by definition, is a set of points that is the same distance from a given point. The term equidistant means same distance. If we look at the picture, the center of the circle has a point, and next to it is a letter, and that's how we identified the circle is by the point, the letter of the center point. So in this case, it's called circle P. Now, we talked a lot about this last week, and that's the radius. And so a radius is a segment. Remember, a segment is two endpoints and a line between them. A segment with endpoints at the center and also on any point of the circle. So in this case, we have radius AP, right? And that is something we're going to use quite a bit. All right, now a chord is a new term. And by definition, what it is it's a segment that connects any two parts of the circle that you want. So a radius is a segment that connects the center to the circle, but a chord connects the outside edges of the circle together. Now, if we look at this chord, if we were to take point J and move to the right just a little bit, and take point K and move to the right just a little bit, and keep doing that, eventually the chord is going to go through the center of the circle. And when we go through the center of the circle, that's called a diameter. So again, a diameter is a chord that passes through the center. And last week, we talked a lot about the diameter equaling to 2 times the radius. So how many radii or radius are there in this diameter listed in the picture on the right? We have AP and we have BP. So there's 2 radii and it goes through and it creates 1 diameter. And again, one thing to keep in mind about diameters, because this becomes really important in this unit, the diameter will have a center point and the line going through it. So that is really important for you guys to pay attention to, is that the line goes through the center. All right, so here's a new word we haven't seen before, and that's called secant. So a secant is a line that intersects the circle in 2 places. So it's almost like a chord, but it goes through the circle. It continues on and on in both directions forever. And there's applications why this is important compared to using just the chord. All right, now if we were to take point X and point Y and move them slowly closer together, so point Y would go up to the top of the circle and point X would go left to the top, eventually those 2 points would form 1 point. And that single point ends up becoming a tangent. So it would create a tangent line. So X and Y meeting together is going to create point Q. And point Q is 1 point of the circle that particular line would touch the circle. And that line is called a tangent line. So a tangent line is a line that intersects the circle at only 1 place. So point Q is what we call the point of tangency, the point at which the tangent line touches the circle. All right, so now we're going to get into a couple angles of circles, which seems kind of odd, but there's 2 types. One is called a central angle, the angle in the center, and that means an angle has a vertex at the center, and then the 2 sides are created of the angle from using radii or radius. So if we look over here, AP and BP are radii, and they intersect at center P. And then we would identify it using the angle symbol like we have all year, with 3 letters, the middle letter being the vertex. All right, inscribed angle is going to be a bit different. In this case, the angle goes all the way across the center, across the circle. So we have chord AC and we have chord BC, and those 2 chords intersect at the same point. So it's an angle with the vertex on the circle and two sides that are chords. So the differences between the two is something to pay attention to by definition. Visually, you can tell they're different, and including the degree angles as well, which we're going to study quite a bit. All right, now we get into arcs. So circles have a specific type of component called an arc. And an arc is a portion of the edge of the circle, not the whole thing. So what we've talked about so far is the entire arc of the circle is called a circumference. But a partial circumference is called an arc. And so we're going to identify it by using endpoints. And typically it's either highlighted or marked or something like that. And the symbol is this arc mark, which we're going to see in the next example. So there's three types of arcs, technically. One is called the minor arc. And a minor arc is an arc that is less than 180 degrees. So we're going to talk about what 180 degrees means in a minute. So if we look here, we see we have A and B, and that's an arc. And then we put the arc mark over those 2 points. We could also switch the letter order to BA if you wanted to, okay? All right, so we use two letters to name it, and it's less than 180 degrees. Now, a major arc is going to be bigger than 180 degrees, and we're going to use three letters to name it. So A, C, B would be the major arc. If we just said AB, for example, so a question comes up, why do we use three letters? Well, if I just said AB, is it this AB or is it this AB? And so we don't know, because technically those are both AB, but when we put that third point in there, the point C, that tells us we have to follow kind of connect the dot style this way. And when we look, it's more than half the circle, so that's going to be a major arc, and we need three letters. All right, and the most famous arc of them all, sung in the tune of Rudolph, is the semicircle. All right, and this is an arc with the endpoints that are the diameter. And remember, a few minutes ago, we talked about the diameter is going to go through the center of the circle. So if you have a diameter, you're going to see a center point, and you're going to see a line going through that point. It would still be identified using the arc mark, and most times you're going to have three letters identifying a semicircle. You could use two letters as well, as long as you know that the diameter is going through the center. And a semicircle is half of a circle, which is 180 degrees. So there's a lot of words here. I encourage you guys, this video is less than 10 minutes long, to draw these out 4 or 5 times each. Spend a lot of time, doing this. If you want to create a Quizlet for yourself, these are things you're going to need to know moving forward. So really take the time this week to learn these vocab terms, because when we start next week's content, if you don't understand these terms, it may become a little bit difficult. So make sure you spend time this week learning these things.